And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I am thrilled to be hosting the incredible Sally Hepworth all the way from Melbourne, Australia, here to tell us about her red-hot new thriller, The Good Sister. Sally, welcome to Many Mysteries. Tell us about your book.
Oh, thank you. It's so good to be here. And I just need to point out that we've got our sequins on this morning, because it's a special occasion, right? Even if it's 6 a.m. in Australia, we can get our sequins on. Okay, so the book is called The Good Sister, which gives you a little bit of a hint about what it's about. It's about sisters, Fern and Rose, who are incredibly close, not just because they're twin sisters, but also because they've shared a pretty difficult, pretty turbulent childhood together. And because of that childhood, they are carrying a secret into their adulthood, pretty terrible secret. And now they're adults. They are living pretty good lives. And there is Fern, who is what you probably call the quirky sister. She is a single librarian, and she is probably on the spectrum, although she hasn't been diagnosed. And she has sensory processing disorder, which causes her to lead a fairly insular life and also to rely on her sister Rose in order to lead her life. Then there's Rose, who is the responsible sister. She is married, she has the white house with the white picket fence, and she has plans to have a baby as soon as she can. So the sisters are so close that when Fern discovers that Rose can't have the baby that she yearns for, she decides that she's going to step in and see if she can help her sister, unbeknownst to her sister. And that decision really kicks off the book, leading both the women, but particularly Fern, on a journey of independence from her sister. And it's a journey that causes a whole lot of secrets from the past to kind of resurface and to cause Fern to look at her entire life so far and figure out if it is what she thinks it is. I think that's the best spoiler-free, what I can tell you that's spoiler-free.
Ooh, well, I am intrigued. I am reading an advanced copy of this book right now, and I am fully sucked in for all of the reasons that you just listed. And I want to get into everything you just mentioned and some other aspects of the book as well. But I just want to pause and welcome everybody on Facebook. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. We're so happy to have you here. Welcome, Anissa. Welcome, Joanne. Welcome, Anne. Welcome, Kim. Welcome, Barbara. Welcome, Judy. We're so happy to have you. Thanks for all the hearts up that you're sending us on Facebook. If you've been here before, you know the drill. And if you're new, here's the drill. Grab your coffee, grab your tea, grab your sequins, and come join us as we present you with two mystery and thriller authors every week, and you get to ask them anything. So you can ask Sally about her writing, her research, her creative process, what her experience with sisters, with sequins, anything you'd like to do. So go ahead and get those questions and comments going in the chat, and we'll get them right over to her. Barbara is saying she loves your books, Sally. Barbara, thank you so much. Us too. Anissa, top community member, says she's just finished the book yesterday. She absolutely devoured it. Anissa, thank you for that. And clearly the three, we are not the only ones, because this book is getting some incredible praise. Let's get right into it. So CNN named this most anticipated book. Amazing. E! Online. Who doesn't love E? Me. I love it. Named it one of 50 books to check out. Also has been named by Bustle best new books to read in April. Thank you for that. And Goodreads, wow, a huge, incredible Goodreads shout out there. Named Sister one of the most anticipated books of 2021. Incredible praise here. So let's get right into it. So, questions are popping up already. I'm going to get them right over. Judy says, as a twin, she's interested if you have done research about twins. Are you a twin? Do you have twins?
That is a great question. I am not a twin, but my older brothers are twins. And it is something that has been a real defining feature of my life, because ever since I was little, I used to wonder where my other one was. You know, there was just me and there were my brothers. And apparently I used to say that to my mum when I was when I was a child, where's my other one? And I was the only girl, and it just felt, that people came in twos. And so, of course, as a family, we have had an interest in twins. My brothers have been part of a lot of twin studies, and it's just been an area that has been really interesting to me. And so naturally, I think this is the second time that I have had twins as main characters in my book. It keeps popping up. And I didn't do specifically any kind of additional research for this book, apart from what I already had about twins. But what I was interested in is the way that we can have two perspectives of anything, even without someone being twins. There's always, what do they say, three sides of the truth: your version, my version, and what actually happened. And I just think that there is a no more interesting example of that when they're twins. You've had the same nurture, the same nature, and here you are looking at something in completely different ways. So I thought it was just the perfect way to illustrate the different sides of the truth. And yes, I've had a personal interest in twins.
Me too. So same as you, Sally. I don't have twins. I have younger sisters and a brother. I'm the eldest of four. But I spent my whole life wishing I was a twin, because I think I just was so fascinated by the idea that people could come in twos, and how fabulous and how fantastic it would be to have someone who looked just like you. So Judy, I'm jealous that you got a twin. Sally's brothers, I'm jealous of you. That's fantastic, because they are so fascinating, aren't they? And I love what you talked about, how twins or not, with siblings, in families, there's always these three versions: yours, mine, and the truth. And you see that here in this book, because you alternate back and forth between Rose and Fern's point of view, and also Rose's journal. So we see how she's processing the world, and then through Fern's being in her head as a character, we see how she's processing the world. And there's so much to talk about here. So let's start there. And I know at the end of your book, actually, you said that this book was inspired by an interaction that your two daughters had, and that really intrigued you about the relationship with sisters. Tell us about that moment with your daughters.
Yes. So this is probably a good opportunity to make the confession that I don't actually have a sister myself. This always comes up at some point, so I prefer just to get it out of the way. And in fact, my interest in sisters was born of the fact that I don't have a sister myself. I'm surrounded by sisters. My mum is one of 5 sisters. All of my best girlfriends have got at least one sister. And here I've got the twin brothers, no sisters. And so I've always watched from a sort of voyeur perspective of sisters. And so it was greatly exciting for me when I had my second daughter, and I realized I'm going to get an up close view of this now. And I'm going to get to see all of the magic and wonder that I thought was missing from my life. And indeed, I have seen that, but I have also seen the other side of sisters. And I think anyone who has a sister who is listening will be nodding at this, because I didn't sort of realize that it wasn't all sunshine and lollipops. And the exact moment that you're referring to, where I was inspired for this book, happened a couple of years ago, because publishing is slow. And I remember it was the Australian summer, and I was standing outside and I was watching my little girls play. And it was one of those rare moments of joy. They were playing nicely. They weren't fighting. They were, there was squeals of joy, which was amazing. It was to the point where I thought, I'm going to go back into the house and pour myself a drink. I'm going to do something for myself. And I barely finished processing the thought when the squeals of joy turned to those other awful kinds of squeals, that someone's been injured squeals, which is just like mum's law, isn't it? As soon as you think that you're going to do something else. So I went to investigate the squeals, and when I did, I found that my older daughter had this ring of teeth marks on her arm. And my younger daughter, who was 2 at the time, was looking kind of guilty. So it didn't take a genius to figure out what had happened. And naturally, I went to reprimand my younger daughter for the biting incident.
Fair.
Not very harshly, just in a normal kind of way that a mother would tell off a 2-year-old. And my older daughter, who was the injured party, she had the teeth marks on her arm, stepped in front of my baby and said, "Don't you speak to my baby sister like that." And I was so confused because I thought, as someone with brothers, there was no greater joy in my childhood than when my brothers got into trouble. It was my life's mission was to get them. And still is, to this day, when mum tells them off, life is golden. And here was my older daughter, teeth marks in her arm, didn't want her sister to get in trouble. And she then said to me, "Don't worry, mum, I'll get her back later when she's not paying attention." And it was just the most gorgeous marrying of the beautiful parts of sisters and the treacherous part of sisters. And I walked away from that interaction and I came into my office and I was trying to think of a new book idea. I didn't know what it was going to be. And I opened my notebook and I just wrote "sisters?" because I just knew there was something there. And later other pieces came together, but that was the real kernel that started the whole thing.
I absolutely loved reading that in the acknowledgments at the back of the book. Margaret saying from YouTube saying, "What a strange incident revealing of sisters." Margaret, is so true, because there she is, the victim of the bite, the biting victim herself, with the wound still fresh on her arm, saying, "Don't you speak to her?" And you're thinking, oh, how lovely, she's supporting her little sister, and then she says, "I'll get her later." And she's not expecting it. So a little vicious there. I like it, pre-planning.
It's complicated, isn't it? That's what sisters revealed to me, that it's a complicated relationship. We'll say that.
It really is a complicated relationship. As someone with two sisters, I can attest. And what I found so fascinating about this is, again, not just the relationships of sisters and the complexity that you get into so well, so compellingly, but also the mother that each has with the relationship that each has with their mother, herself a complex character, very tough childhood, at least for Rose. Fern doesn't remember it quite that same way. Another thing that I really loved, and this is actually leading me to a question I saw, I'm just making sure I didn't miss it. You wrote a story about Fern having being neurodiverse, so a term that I found while researching this. So she's on the spectrum, and to be in her. So first of all, I just want to say I love reading a character who is neurodiverse. To seeing someone on the page who has autism, because I so firmly believe that everyone deserves to see themselves on the page, on the screen, on the stage. Everyone should see themselves there. And this is the first book that I've read where it's from being inside the brain of a person who processes the world very differently than I do. And so I loved seeing how she felt and how she experienced conversations and why she did what she did. So that was fascinating. And that leads me to my next question from Anissa from Facebook, saying, which of these sisters was the hardest to write and why? And this is a fantastic question. Sally, give us the inside scoop.
Oh, it's so interesting because, and I'm aware that some of the people won't have read the book, so it isn't really going to give anything away, I don't think, to say that it was Rose. Rose was the more difficult character to write, and I'll explain that. Fern in the book is, as you say, she hasn't been diagnosed with autism, but it's my belief that she would be on the spectrum. She does have sensory processing disorder, and that is what really goes hand in hand with autism generally, and causes her to really lead a very structured kind of life. And that is something. I have a neurodiverse family. My son is on the spectrum. My daughter has ADHD, and so creating the character of Fern was really, insofar as depicting her as being on the spectrum, I didn't have to do any research. This is part of my lived experience. I have done a lot of research on it simply from being a mum and, being in the community. And so being able to step into her head, while I am not on the spectrum myself, so I do have to imagine what her thoughts would be and how she would process things. But I didn't have to kind of go to a book and say, this is a list of traits. Now I need to apply this to a character. And it's a really freeing way to write. And I think that's why people identify with characters that are created by people who really understand that world, because you start to write really from the heart of the character, as opposed to writing a list of traits and writing from the book. You write from the heart. And so I found Fern, a delightful character to read. And I really like what you said, is that we do need to see ourselves in not just books, but media, and we need to see ourselves represented. And that's something that's important to me as a mum. But what was more important, because we do see characters who are neurodiverse in books. There is the Rosie Project, which was so fantastic, by Graham Simpson, another Australian author, which has a character with Asperger's syndrome in the main role. There was Incredibly Loud and Extremely Close. Is that what I get that wrong? There is, The Curious Case of the Dog. Those books do exist, and I love seeing them more and more. And for me, I had two goals really in writing this book. One was to really profile sensory processing disorder, which is something that, while we have seen autistic characters or characters who are on the spectrum, I haven't seen a lot of sensory processing disorder written about in books. And it's something that really affects our life. And I love to be able to highlight something, A, because it's interesting for people to read, but B, when more people know about something, you're creating more empathy there. And I want to create a more empathetic world for my kids. But the other part of it is that when we see these characters in the books that I mentioned, often they are the main character because they have autism. The book is about them having autism. And what I wanted to see was characters in fiction, not because they have autism, but in spite of the fact that they have autism. They're part of our world. It's not just about that. They are going through, the same coming of age, all the same challenges that we have as neurotypical people. And, with the example of Fern, the book wasn't about the fact that she did or didn't have autism. She existed. She was a character. She was going through challenges to do with her family. And her autism was the least interesting thing about her. She was this wonderful librarian. She was this, wonderful person. She was going on a journey. And that was something that was really important to me to create.
Yes, yes, yes. And thank you. And I'm starting to see that same trend with LGBTQIA characters. It doesn't have to be the entirety of that person. It doesn't have to be the entirety of that story. It's just a by the way. It's something about them. And perhaps the least interesting thing about this incredibly well-rounded, incredibly diverse, incredibly compelling character. And the more we see that, the more we normalize it, and the more we celebrate it, and the more that it just becomes part of the literary landscape, instead of this big thing that is the big thing that we all focus on. So I loved that. I love that. And it really does matter. So one of my favorite shows on TV is The Big Bang Theory. And one of the lead characters, Sheldon, also on the spectrum. And one of my sisters actually works with kids who have special needs. She co-founded a company here that treats children who with every special need, from physical to mental to everything. And one of her patients is a little boy, and he couldn't bear to hear a certain word. The sound of this word would send him screaming, running from the room. And then Sheldon said it on The Big Bang Theory, and he came to his session a week later and he said, well, if Sheldon can do it, I can do it. And it matters. These kids and everybody need to see characters like them on the page, on the screen, on the stage, on the big screen, on the little screen, everywhere. We all deserve to see each other and to see ourselves. So I loved that you did that for Fern. Christina is saying Fern is fantastic. Christina, yes. Thank you for that. And this is saying she would have thought Fern would have been the harder character to write. Fascinating that it is actually Rose. So thank you for that.
Fern was a joy to write. Once I got into her head, yes, she was different from me, and that presents challenges, but all characters are different from me. And she was so distinct, from the moment she popped up in my head. I just was so connected to her that I loved stepping into her point of view and seeing the ways that it brought me great joy as a writer and also as a mother, and the way that she came together. So you would think, wouldn't you? But it wasn't. It was joy.
Christine's saying that it transcended very well. Thank you for that, Christina. Okay, another question. Oh, coming from Anissa. Did you model the mum, after anyone in particular? She was very interesting, to say the least. Tell us about this mom, because I had a hard time with her. I got to be honest.
I know. Both my great auntie Gwen, who asked the exact same question, where did you get the mum character from? Is that, a real character? And my own mum was very quick to jump in and say I wasn't the inspiration for that mum. And the answer is no. She just came from my head, like many of them do. I was interested in a not so perfect character. That's what I do in my books. And I don't think anyone is evil per se. I think everyone has a reason that they behave the way that they do. And I'm always interested in getting inside and discovering what that reason is, rather than just writing someone off as a two-dimensional villain. And so, no, I didn't model her from anyone, but I enjoyed creating her because she was the perfect challenge for these girls. And what is fiction about other than a challenge? Watching the characters have challenges thrown at them and looking at how they emerge at the end. And she was, the challenge for Rose, definitely, and also for Fern. So there's no inspiration taken from real life there.
It would have been a tough conversation if you had to say, actually, Mum, it is you. Happy Mother's Day. Here's a signed copy.
No, I need to get the disclaimer out of the way. I should
Merry
say that
Christmas.
up front, because exactly. I'm going to get cut off.
Exactly. Christina saying it was interesting how it didn't overshadow the story. It was just an aspect of Fern, going back to her neurodiversity. Absolutely. I loved that. Margaret, good question from Margaret coming in from YouTube. Tell us, would this be problematic if given as a gift to a sister? Speaking of gifts.
I think I've seen a lot of photos, because the book has been out in Australia for some time, even though it's not out in the US. And I've seen a lot of photographs on Instagram of people with their sister holding the book and trying to decide who's the good sister. So it probably depends on your sense of humor. But I'm going to say no. It's a great present to get your sister, and maybe you can just start reading it together and decide who you think's the good one.
Okay, I just had an idea. Let's launch a hashtag, the Good Sister Challenge. So you take a picture with yourself if you have a sister, or you wish you did, or you wish you didn't, and you tag that person and Sally and the book, and let's take this conversation to the Twitter sphere. Let's take it to the Instagram sphere. Let's take it on Facebook. Let's launch the hashtag Good Sister Challenge. Who's the good sister? Who isn't? You heard it here first. So that. And tag us, tag the Mighty Blaze, tag me, Sara DiVello, tag Sally, and we'll weigh in as to who we think the good sister is. I'm going to go on a limb and just say it is me. Okay, don't let my sisters tell you any different. Margaret's saying, so great to see the Aussie and New Zealand authors. Sara brings on many mysteries. Aussie April is a thing here on BookTube. Does Sally have a current favorite Oz read? Tell us. Thank you, Margaret.
I have so many favorite Australian authors. Liane Moriarty, obviously, everyone knows, who I adore, and Jane Harper is another amazing Australian author. Kelly Rimmer, who wrote my very favorite book, The Things We Cannot Say. In terms of what I'm reading right now, it's not an Aussie reader. I'm reading The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Most of my favorite books are Australian. There was a wonderful book called Heartsick by a debut author called Jessie Stevens that I just finished. I could go on and on. Jane Cochran's one of my favorite authors. Lisa Ireland. I could go on and on. Check out an Aussie author today.
I love that. And actually, Jane Harper was just on the show a few weeks ago. I guess last month. For The Survivors, which I absolutely devoured. I love Jane Harper, and I love all of her books, and the
Me
survivors
too.
did not disappoint.
No.
Taking place in Tasmania, down in Tassie, and she's so wonderfully atmospheric, isn't she? Like, she really gives
Oh,
you the sense that you're in the outback, that you're in Tasmania, that you're tasting the salt of the water, you're feeling the burning sun on your skin. I mean, she's just absolutely fantastic on making the setting a character.
she is. That's her cornerstone
That's
of
her thing.
her writing, and every one of her books I think has been better than the last one. And she's one of my favorites for sure. She's with my Australian publisher, and I'm always constantly beg, borrowing, and stealing to try and get an early copy of her book.
Ah, yes, absolutely fantastic. And Liane Moriarty actually gave this book a rave review. And I want to quote it just exactly right. Let me just scroll down here and get it. You know what? I'll have to come back to that because I am not seeing it right now. I'm scrolling through all these fabulous comments and questions. But you got a rave review from Liane Moriarty, who, of course, wrote Big Little Lies, which became the fantastic TV series, which we all loved.
Yeah.
And she loved this book. So fantastic. Margaret is saying great recommendations. Thank you. Anissa saying she loved the survivors too. Anissa, thank you. Absolutely.
Amazing.
Yay. Barbara would like to know, will the book be out in audio?
It sure will, yes. And I've got the most amazing American narrator who does this perfect Australian accent. And it is such a hard accent to do. Her name is Barry Krynick. Yeah, and I've never heard anyone do it. You know, Australians laugh back from the days when Baywatch used to have Australian characters who were played by Americans, and we used to just love, laughing at the accents. But they've got better and better, and Barry just does the most perfect Australian accent. So yes, it's coming out in audio. I've actually got a competition over on my Instagram page at the moment to give away 3 audio copies, so that will be it's still open, and you can go over and enter through Libro FM. And yes, and audio is one of my favorite ways to consume books, so I just love having it available in audio.
I love that. I'm shocked that they had an American do an Australian accent instead of just getting an Aussie. But everybody follow Sally here. I just popped it up on the screen, Instagram.com/Sally Hepworth. Go over there and get entered to win a copy of the audiobook where you can hear an American do an Australian accent. And it is hard because I've tried. I'm good at accents, but I cannot pull that one off. Anissa's joking. Y'all made fun of us. Y'all made fun of us. No. It's the no. It's hard. It's that flat no.
The word y'all is my favorite, and I sometimes say it because I just want to be, a Texan, and it doesn't sound right in an Australian accent, I'll tell you that. But look, I've been known to bust out a very bad American accent too, so I definitely am not judging.
Let's hear it, Sally.
Oh, what do I say? I usually do it when I'm in America. Oh, well, I think that my new book is called The Good Sister, and it's out on April 13. And it's about 2 sisters.
That's really good.
No,
That's
it's
really
not.
good. That's so good. All right, I'm gonna try Christina's question in an Aussie accent. So, Sally, any hints on what type of character dynamic are you exploring in your next book? See, I go too British.
It's got a British twang, but that's okay. That's a good place to start. We can work from there. What kind of character? Oh, well, so the next book after The Good Sister is really, it's funny because we've got the title currently, The Younger Wife, which would seem like it's quite obvious what we're exploring, but in fact that book is about fathers, and it's something that I have got an interest in, familial relationships, as you might have guessed, the mother-in-law, the good sister, the younger wife. And I really am interested in relationships and the influence they have on us as human beings. And I think that the father relationship, especially for women, is significant. Whether or not you've got a beautiful, loving father, you don't have a father figure, you have not had a good relationship with your father, it's not that you can't get past that as a woman, and so many women do, but it's that it undoubtedly leaves its mark. And that is something that has been really interesting to me and was what I wanted to explore in that book. So, of course, it sits around plot, and, you know, there is a dead body, which I really enjoy having in my books these days. And there is, you know, relationships and things. But at the heart of it, that's what I was really trying to explore.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for that great question, Christina. Thank you for that lovely answer, Sally. Christina saying yes. That's why she asked. That's why she asked. Anissa saying that I need to work on my accent a little bit. Kimberly chiming in.
She might have meant me. I think my accent needed some
help. No, because Kimberly saying my Australian accent, eek. And this is saying Sally's accent is really good. Barbara chiming in that Sally's American accent is amazing. Kimberly also chiming in. Okay, I need to step it up because look at all this praise coming in for Sally's American accent. And Nissa commenting that
I have grown up on American TV. We are fed a steady diet of it, and I just don't think that the same is true in reverse. So just props to you for giving it a go. I think that was pretty good. We can finesse it. But I was at a natural advantage.
I've lived in Australia. I should be better than this. It's really hard. And this is saying she's watching today from South Carolina, and she says y'all all the time.
Oh, hey y'all. Oh,
hey y'all.
Best word. I'm going to move to Texas one day and just say it all the time. I'm going to be the crazy Australian saying y'all.
You know what's funny? It's actually my Australian adoptive family, Just Matilda and Helen. They love country music, and when it's not a pandemic, they come over for the country music festival and go to Nashville, put their cowboy hats on, and say "y'all" a lot. I've never joined them; it's not my scene, but they love it. So that
Australians are just really weird like that. We love saying "y'all" and wearing country hats.
It is really fun to drop a good y'all, and it's just so all encompassing, isn't it? I'm loving all
I'm not making fun of you. I love y'all. It's my favorite. I just want to be friends with you.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Margaret is saying she can give this book to one sister, but not the other. Kimberly's saying the Good Sister Challenge. Take a photo with your sister, tag Sarah and Sally. Absolutely. Margaret saying she loves it. It's brilliant. I do what I can since I can't do the accents. These are fantastic. Thank you all so much. Thank y'all so much. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any questions. Thank you guys all. And we have just a few minutes left. So if you have any final questions for Sally, go ahead and type them in the box and I will get them right over to her. Just any last questions about Sally and her book, let us know. And, thank you. Oh, Margaret saying the sequins are off the charts, ladies. Congrats on the spectacular launch. Oh, thanks for noticing, Margaret. Margaret's also an author specializing in Scottish and British fiction. Thanks for all of that.
Hi, Margaret.
And I just wanted to remind everybody that you can grab a copy of The Good Sister and actually all of Sally's best-selling books right here on bookshop.org and support independent bookstores, which need our dollars and our love, our Australian and American dollars, all of our dollars. So grab a copy of Sally's book, again, earning absolutely incredible praise. We have just 2 minutes left. So if you have any questions for Sally, just let her know. So fun fact, Sally's book, The Mother-in-Law, has been optioned for a TV series by actress Amy Poehler's production company, Paper Kite. We love Amy Poehler. That's absolutely incredible. Business Insider raving that The Good Sister achieves the impossible trio of creepy, tender, and funny. Hepworth is an author poised to break out. Absolutely fantastic. The Seattle Times says this is a compelling and assured psychological twister. The book has a wicked sting of an ending, giving its title a dark second meaning. I agree. But where The Good Sister really shines is in its convincing, fascinating portrayal of Fern's sensory processing disorder, both its blessings and its curses. Library Journal raving that it is a warped tale of twisted memories and skewed perceptions that will make fans of psychological thrillers say, wow, I did not see that coming. And that is high praise. Publishers Weekly also awarding you a rave review, saying its punchy prose helps propel the twisty plot to a creepy but satisfying conclusion. For fans of domestic dramas, this is a treat. Booklist also raving. You've been named, again, a must-read, most anticipated book by CNN, E! Online, Bustle, Goodreads. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Sally, what do you think the secret to writing a book that earns that kind of praise is? How'd you do it?
I think if I knew that, then I would stop writing novels and I would start writing a book on how to do it. The truth is,
I'd buy that book.
Yeah, I think it would be a bestseller. Gosh, how does one do it? I feel like, and I'm not a super, woo-woo kind of person. I think that books are craft as well as they are art, and it really is about marrying the two. But I think that sometimes with some books, something happens where the stars align, a perfect character finds a perfect plot, and for some reason it does connect with people, and it might be to do with the time, the particular time that the book comes out, and it might be to do with the way that people's hearts have opened, at that particular time. It might be to do with a character that sort of reveals something that hadn't been done before in that way. And there are so many things that it could be. And as the writer, again, this sounds a little bit woo-woo, but I think that we just kind of create the stories, we write them, and then we kind of give them up and we see what resonates and what doesn't. And sometimes books that we have really loved writing just didn't hit the way that we thought it would. And other books that we thought, wow, this one has connected, and I kind of separate myself from, I did this better or I did this worse, and just kind of think, well, you know what, this one hit, that's great. And if it makes the world a little bit more empathetic, then all the better. That's what we're trying to do as fiction writers.
Oh, I love that. I really love that. Thank you for that, Sally. Good question here from Kimberly. She would like to know, have you found it challenging to be creative during COVID? If so, how have you pushed through? It's something I'm struggling with as well. I know we're all struggling in different ways. Sally, what's it been like for you? Any advice? Insights?
I know. I mean, every writer that I spoke to last year was struggling to not only write, but also read. And that was something that I was really struggling with, finishing a book, of course, because our brain cells were taken up with what is happening in the world. Are our loved ones going to die? Are we allowed to go outside? What are we doing? So that is really normal. I was stuck in my house with my family of 5 and my dog, like most people, and it was a really interesting time where my toddler daughter was coming in, with my non-removable lipstick all over her face when I was in the middle of a call like this, and I've got a lock on my door. And my kids got a knife that they would use to it was like a murder film, they would shimmy it through and open up the door. It was an absolute madhouse here, which, as you can imagine, is not all that conducive to creativity. We were definitely we weren't nailing lockdown. We weren't the aspirational family. We were the drinking family, which was great. And sometimes alcohol can help to fuel, writing, but no, not really. I found that what I needed to do last year in order to write The Younger Wife, which is the book that I was writing, was I needed to write in really short chunks. And it was often 350 words at a time. I'd find myself between homeschooling, things. I'd just maybe set up my little one in front of the TV. Let's face it, wasn't an educational activity. And I'd come into my office and I would just go, right, I've got one scene to write, and I would just bang out 350 words. And it sounds it sounds like the opposite of creativity. It sounds so mechanical, but actually I found it really freeing to know I've only got this much time. It didn't allow me to let the inner critic come in or to agonize over a sentence. It was just bang, I'm just writing this scene. And I feel like I do my best writing that way. And I will do it again because I found it, especially just to get a first draft out, it was a very practical and effective way to do it. So it changed my creativity, but I was still able to write a book last year. So that was something.
I love that. I love that. And you know what's so interesting is when I have all the time in the world, I think to myself, 3 hours. Today I shall complete my masterpiece. And then I sit there and I can't get anything done. But when I'm like, oh crap, I only got 15 minutes before my next Zoom meeting, all of a sudden the words flow. So there's something to that, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
I love that.
Exactly.
Thanks.
And you really power past the doubt, the self-doubt and the self-loathing and all of those other things that go through your head and just get the work done.
Exactly. Oh, well, Sally Hepworth, thank you for joining us all the way from Melbourne. And it has
That
been
was
such
good.
it's the you got to take the R out, Melbourne.
Yeah.
I'm working on my accent there, and it's a
Well
joy.
done.
It has been such a joy to host you, such a joy to chat all about your brand new book, which is earning incredible praise. And please come back and chat with us when your next book is out. This has been a joy.
Anytime. I would love it. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. All right, everybody. We'll see you right here next time on Mighty Mysteries. Have a great day. And thank you again to my partner in crime, Kimberly Hensel Lawrence, for being an amazing, amazing partner. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly.